Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for us being tuned live. It is 35 minutes past 11. We have just given 5 minutes just for everyone to quickly join in so that they could just stream and catch us at the introduction. I go by the name of Beryl Scheepers, and I am here to officially launch the initiative of Mgqibelo Thetha. It is a Saturday afternoon initiative that was created by corporate professionals who are passionate about young talent, and they would just love to give back to the youth of South Africa and just give their pointers, to share their journeys, and just give different ideas of how corporate has been for them, and just to utilize how their journey has been and show and express how the youth of South Africa could use their learnings to apply for their own positions and carry on through their own journeys. As I have mentioned, I am Beryl Elizabeth Scheepers. I am a management trainee at a FMCG company. I am currently within enterprise and supply development, so I just become a catalyst of suppliers who would like to supply to the FMCG industry. I am within Young Talent, and therefore I am a catalyst of this initiative by being a host. And I just hope that I do express myself and just give my story as well, to just note that I am Young Talent and I am a recent graduate. I graduated in 2019 for my honors at UJ, and therefore I was just looking for employment. And reason being why I also did my honors was after I had my degree, just nothing was coming through for me. I was literally applying for jobs so often, every day, just putting my hopes out there, and nothing and no one responded. I just got dear Beryl, we are sorry to let you know. And I just received so many of those emails that I eventually just continued to study. And I said, okay, let me apply for a bursary and do my honors, and maybe and hopefully something will pull through for me. And only one organization where I'm currently employed me and offered me a letter of intent, and I went about it, and I am quite happy where I am. So I am really appreciative of this initiative, and I'm grateful for the creators of this initiative that are just putting their voices out there, and they're just being people who are giving back, because we don't really get professionals who do this. So I'm very grateful for this initiative, and I would love for them to also just introduce themselves, let us know about why they created this initiative and why it's so close to their hearts. As the video said, let's get talking. Could our hosts please unmute themselves and let us know much more about themselves?
Good morning, everybody. Oh, I'm here. Morning, everyone. My name is Phindile Hlabangane. I am a young talent specialist, as is mentioned. So I'm super excited for today. My nerves are going crazy. But, you know, I think the one thing that's been important for me has always been sharing my own journey and my own learning. From the perspective of being an unemployed graduate myself, and also from the perspective of being the person on the other side who sees the CVs, who goes through, you know, 1,000 or so. I think I've probably seen 10,000 CVs in my career. But also just being a coach and a mentor as well. It's taught me quite a lot about things that people go through, things that I feel that we might be missing as recruiters, and some things that I think that graduates and job seekers might be missing. So one of the reasons why we started this initiative really was about that. We wanted to close that gap, or provide people at least with access to the means to close that gap, the tools, the tricks, we're going to cover everything. We're going to cover everything, but we'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So Ronnie, I'm going to hand over to you.
Indeed. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Phindi. Thank you, Beryl, and Shalin. Thank you very much for being part of this initiative. Also something very close to my heart. So my name is Ronnie Mulaudzi, and I'm from the villages of Venda. So I think we're going to talk about that pretty much like Shalin. So we're going to talk about our journeys in this initiative. and I'm looking forward to the interaction. So I think it's going to be a great help if everybody can ask their questions. I've also been a grad recruiter. I think I spent about 10 years of my career in the graduate development space in various industries, manufacturing, retail, food and beverage, financial services, consulting. So it's been quite an interesting journey. And I think there's quite a lot to share about, my observations having been in that space for such a long time, and also still currently being in the operations and HR space. And so I think I'm looking forward to share that in this session, and hopefully we get a lot of questions. Thanks, Beryl.
Awesome. Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks, Phindile. Thanks, Beryl. Guys, I'm so excited this day is here. This has definitely been a passion project. Conversations have been happening for almost a year now around how we can bridge the gap between students transitioning into the workplace. So I'm Shalin Ledwaba. I am an early careers lead within the financial services industry at the moment. But I come in with experience from a little bit of retail. We'll talk about that later. Consulting and FMCG. And I am definitely a momager of note. So anybody who has engaged with me in the workplace, especially my graduates, will tell you that I am an advocate for young talent in the workplace, helping them find their voice and just showing up as their best self. Thank you so much, Beryl.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for introducing yourselves. I think Ronnie also touched a little bit on how he grew up in a village, and I would just like to ask him, could he please give us any advice of any individuals that are currently in remote areas, and how could they maneuver themselves through the remote areas just to find methods of looking for employment within the city?
Great stuff. Thanks, Beryl, for that. I think that the reason I mentioned that I was, born and bred in a village is important for me, because I think what we want to do here in these sessions is also to have, very authentic conversations about our own, experiences. I was saying earlier on when we were preparing for the session that, the English is only sounding the way it's sounding now, but it was not there in the beginning. So I went to primary school in the village. Didn't know a word of English until I had to go to a multiracial school in town, and you can imagine, having grown up in a village speaking Tshivenda only, and now being exposed to this diverse environment. There are white people there. People are speaking English and Afrikaans, something that it just sounded like TV. To me, it didn't sound like something I could engage in. And so I had a lot of time to just absorb and to learn. And fast forward many years later now. I was in primary school, like in the at the advent of democracy, '94. I was in primary school. So fast forward, and I get to Wits University. I study, and then true to what how life actually works out. Then I get into a grad program. I was saying to Shalin and Phindile earlier that one of the reasons, the ways I got into the grad program with PwC way back in 2007, it wasn't actually even because I had a particular degree, because my degree was so varied. I had a BSc, Bachelor of Science, Environment, Conservation, Zoology, plus industrial psychology. So it was just like a very awkward, very weird combination to even have. And so, we did grad applications, during career fairs, literally handwritten applications. And when I walked into through the door at PwC on my first day for induction, the HR ladies, they were like, "Oh, are you that guy with the beautiful, neat handwriting on the form?" Because that's how your application actually got to the top of the pile. And you can imagine, those days, I think unemployment wasn't as high as it is now. Now we're talking really scary numbers, and so you can imagine that, being a young student at that time, and having had, and I mean, this for me was the only employer, pretty much like you, Beryl, the only employer that actually even, gave me feedback. And so my first job, that's how I got into the world of work. And so for me, I think that gave me the indication that, presentation is really, really important in how you show up. And for me, it was showing up in my neat handwriting. Didn't know that someone would actually even care. Didn't know that someone would actually even look at my application. I mean, I think during that career fair, I must have applied to 20 employers, And so for me, I want to say, first of all, where I'm from didn't kind of determine, where I ended up and where I am now. And secondly is that any opportunity that you get, make the best use of it, irrespective of whether it looks like it might turn out, positive for you. But I think for me, it was, just in that, so my neat handwriting. So sometimes it's just going to be your neat appearance. Someone meets you in the lift, after you've dropped off a CV, and they look at you and they think, wow, you're such a well-presented, young person. What are you doing here? And maybe that's how your next opportunity kickstarts, And so for me, I think I wanted to just emphasize that, it is so important for you to present yourself in the best possible light. Maybe just as I wrap up this section. So just last week, so I'm currently recruiting for interns in my organization. And I got one application which said something like, shooting my shot for a job opportunity. And I just thought, my goodness, maybe that's how things happen these days, and maybe that's acceptable somewhere. But for me, I just found that very, very unacceptable. So, I mean, there's just no way that you're going to even give that kind of, email, a second look, especially when you're dealing with so many applicants that, are writing beautiful, put together, letters of employment. So just an example of how presentation is really, and how you show up are really important. Thanks, Beryl.
Thank you so much for that, Ronnie. I think I noted something that you mentioned, that you majored in 3 different courses, right? I heard industrial, I heard your BSc had 3 different majors. How did you actually pick the one, and you said, okay, from this major, this is how I see my career growing? Was that a deliberate thought? Was it intentionally done? Or what was the process in that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of students out here that have more than one major, but then which line of work do they actually go to? How did you brainstorm that?
Thanks, Beryl. So great question, and a very long story, but I will summarize it in a minute. So actually, when I went to Wits, I wanted to go study to become a doctor. And so that's how I ended up doing a Bachelor of Science degree. I'd been accepted to do the graduate entry medical program at Wits. So you had to start with a BSc degree. Halfway through my BSc first year, I was like, this is not going to happen. This is not going to work. I don't think that I want to pursue the medical career anymore. And lo and behold, I went to the Careers Development Unit at Wits, did a psychometric test there, spoke to a career counselor, and the one key question that she asked me was, why did you want to become a doctor? And I said, well, I enjoy helping people. And she said, well, there are many careers that can help you achieve that. And one of the ones that you can consider is, psychology or human resources, or or many others. And I thought, okay, that's interesting to think about. And that's how I then took up, my double major, which is industrial psychology, halfway through my first year. So I did essentially a bachelor's. I had to finish the Bachelor of Science degree. I was in there already anyway, and then the industrial side came, halfway through the year, and I just sort of finished, all the 3 majors that I was doing, and and that's how I ended up, in human resources, grad recruitment, and and everything else is kind of history. I don't know if I've answered your question.
And helping people while you at it.
Helping people whilst I'm at it, yeah.
Yes. No, thank you so much for that. I'm sure Shah and Pindi as well. You guys are helping people. And if you could just give me insight on how you've also maneuvered yourself into where you currently are. Shah, I think we could start with you because you did mention something about your first job and you have a story for us.
I do have a story for you, Beryl. So the story isn't known to a lot of people, but I actually got my first job when I was 13 years old at a very large supermarket. I'm from a small town not far away from where Ronnie is, called Louis Trichat. They keep fighting around the names, so it's either Makado or Louis Trichat. I'm not sure where we're at right now. But the supermarket opened up and I was one of the first people there to say, listen, can I get a job? So I am not from a privileged background and I really just needed pocket money. So while my friends were out there playing and shopping at the supermarket, I was busy packing their plastic bags, packing shelves, etc. So that is what I was referring to the retail element. I think for me, though, that element really built a sense of resilience. It built, it encouraged me to kind of show up as my best self every single day because I was dealing with different people. And then I moved over. My trajectory was very different from your traditional career trajectory. I started studying tourism and I hated it. Like I just felt like it's not for me. In the back of my mind, I think one of the things I've always wanted to do was to serve and to serve really well. And in a place where I kept praying my passion and my career align. And I'm thankful that I'm currently in that position right now in my career. So what happened was I then dropped out of tourism, apart from the fact that there were no funds at home, I couldn't study further. And back in the day, we didn't get jobs really on Facebook. And we're actually talking about this earlier on. We used to buy the city, what was it? The Star newspaper on a Wednesday because there was a pull-out section with jobs, right? And I literally saw this small little advert and I applied to this advert. They were looking for a receptionist at a recruitment agency. So I applied for that role. I did it and I did it really well. And 3 months later, I got promoted to a junior recruiter. So I come out of an agency environment. I spent about a year in that organization and then I moved out to a bigger recruitment role. Eventually, I was heading up recruitment branches for some of these agencies within Gauteng. And then I felt like, no, man, I want to get into corporate. So I moved back to Limpopo for about 2 years, joined an ICT organization. And as we can imagine, you know, the jobs in Limpopo are quite limited in terms of the brands that are there. So I found myself doing account management in the public sector space, believe it or not. I enjoyed the interaction and building relationships with the different characters in that space, some who are really good friends right now. And then I decided I need to move back to Johannesburg because my career, I felt like I was stagnating. So I moved back to Johannesburg and luckily enough, I had someone who took a chance on me. And she took a chance on me and said, listen, you present yourself so well. So I came in for an interview, showed up, and I walked into this organization, and it's an amazing organization. It's a multinational. Walked into this organization, looking at the people around me and asking myself, am I going to fit in? So imposter syndrome started creeping in a little bit. But when I joined on a 12-month contract. 12 months later, I was then hired as a permanent resource, and the rest is really history. So I've always found myself, although I've got experienced hire, I've hired for experienced hire, so all the way from people with plus minus 2 to 3 years experience, all the way to exco level. I've always found myself getting back into the grad space. So even if I am sitting in an experienced hire role, I feel like they're nuggets that I really am passionate about giving back to graduates. Hence the need for me to come back and change the game in the grad space. So I think that's what I'm doing every single day. I keep saying I feel like I'm living my passion. My career is aligned to what I love doing, and just advocating really for young talent in the workplace. In most of my circles, I'm known as a momager, and it's really because I feel like the generation that we're hiring currently needs a lot of guidance. There's a lot of difference between the expectation from a university perspective to what you get in corporate SA. And you do need a buffer. You need someone who's going to guide you and bring you in there. And I always say, give yourself 24 months to be a sponge, to learn, to absorb, to navigate your way through the workplace and network as much as possible. What's very important is obviously also getting yourself a mentor. And I say this all the time, whether you're in formal employment or not, get yourself a mentor and somebody who's walked the journey, whether it's someone in a different industry, but someone who's got experience in terms of the journey you're about to walk, or has had challenges or experienced the same challenges that you're currently experiencing. So I think for me, yeah, Beryl, that is really around how I landed up where I am right now, around showing up as really my authentic self as much as I possibly could, and my best self, and just making sure that people are benefiting from whatever it is that I'm doing in the job space. And hence this initiative coming to life today, and really just engaging with my colleagues in this space.
Yes. No, thank you. Thank you so much for this, Shah. I really appreciate it. I think you actually said a mouthful, because I was getting little nuggets in every paragraph that you were saying. But one of which you mentioned mentorship, and you mentioned networking and so forth. Are there any strategies that one could make use of to get into the space of networking?
So I think definitely, Beryl, I think it's important, firstly, to identify people who are not at the same level as you. So look up, we've got access to LinkedIn, we've got access to social media, we've got access to the news, really for people like the rest of us who come out of a remote village. Please just excuse me for 1 minute. My 4-year-old is in the background and I just need to manage him. The joys of doing this virtually.
Yes. Phindile, could I please come to you, because I do know that you were part of an initiative of mentorship and just for young talent. Could you please give us some insights of how your journey was, and any nuggets of experience or insights that you have in the space of mentorship, and just giving us the difference between finding an actual career coach and a mentor?
Okay, so yeah, on my side, I think where I could explain things started off for me in terms of my own career. I think like many other people, I graduated from one of the top varsities in the country, but I was unemployed. You know how they say, no, if you go to this varsity, you're going to be guaranteed employment. It's not all of us. I'm one of those that spent 6 months unemployed. But one of the things that I did is that I kept applying. And fortunately, there's a recruiter, can't remember who she is, but thank you for her. She sent me feedback on my CV, because I think she could read my desperation in my motivational letter. But she just gave me a brief of, listen, think of this as an advert. How are you going to put yourself out there? And I think for me, that is a form of somebody mentoring or giving information that helps. And what I ended up doing from there is that I went to actually, the universities offer career services where there's CV development, all those things. I did not use them in varsity, and Kathy is here. Sorry, Kathy, for not using them when you offered. But I went back and I fixed. I fixed my CV. I fixed everything that I was putting out there using the services that were available, and I started seeing things change for myself. As my career journey went, I left corporate and I found myself working for an NGO. Probably one of the best decisions I think I've made, especially being somebody who's involved in young talent. I worked as a student development advisor, but / mentor in an organization that purely focused on students that were coming from rural environments that were now going into university. But what we were doing as student advisors was that we were helping these students transition into the environment. The great thing for me is that I also had a background in corporate. So already I had been a grad recruitment specialist in the FMCG sector, one of the top food and bev companies in the world. And taking that experience, I was able to then filter that into how I worked with my students. And I can tell you now, and I can say this with not trying to blow my own horn, but my students have done well. Yes. But it's because of the nature of our relationship. And I think that's where things become quite different between what a mentor is, the role that a mentor plays versus the role that a coach plays. So I found myself oftentimes having to do both and not knowing that what I was doing was coaching. So the coaching is more of really getting the person understanding where they want to be and you providing tools and resources that are able to help them understand and discover themselves in order for them to get to their goal, to reach their goal. So this means staying quiet and just listening. Yes. Versus a mentor. A mentor is somebody experienced who generally has been through the trenches. They've, suffered all the knocks and blows and had, the incredible successes as well. And you would generally go to that person to just ask for advice, and they would give you advice. They would tell you how they've navigated spaces. So I sort of found myself between the two, but I can tell you now the most effective for me in that environment was more the coaching part, because it allowed my students to be what they needed to be. Not to say mentorship is not valuable. Mentorship is very valuable, especially when you're going into an industry. I think for me, the one mistake that I've made in my career journey was not finding a mentor. If I had to change things now, I probably would have found somebody that could have mentored my career journey. Because there's things that I've been through a lot. I've been through some challenges. And I think had I had people that were able to guide me, especially around thinking and decision making, it would have made some of the things that I faced a little bit easier. Not to say that I don't value them. I really do. Because they've shown me a lot, but it would have been a little bit helpful, and I think I could have kind of like changed my trajectory a little bit had I taken on or had I asked for somebody to mentor me. So hindsight, I've decided that I want to play a part in ensuring that people are able to access resources that I myself had not had the chance to access back then. And I'll say it now very honestly, that I was one of those students that just went about thinking, I'm young, the world is here, I'm just going to go about doing life the way that I need to do it. And not really thinking and considering, how do I craft this journey that I want to craft? What are some of the things that I need to start thinking about that are going to help me in the future? So I found it important for, people to get together, people that are experts, people that understand these things. Let's give the information out. Whether people take it or not, that's a decision that an individual will make. But it will help a lot for us to discuss these things. Because as Shalin, Ronnie, and I were chatting in preparation for this, we were really talking about how even us as recruiters, there's certain things that we also don't know.
Yes.
And my journey at the organization I was speaking about, at the NGO, that taught me that. It taught me that there's a lot of things I don't know about people and their experiences. So the one reason why Mgqibelo Thetha is a discussion and not a video that we're just posting is because we want to hear what people are going through. Because there's things that we don't know. There's things that we know, but we also recognize that there's things that we don't know. And we want to hear what people have to say so that we can also start going, hey, but we didn't think about this. How do we maybe somehow change the way that we practice things? I'm quite grateful today that we've got somebody who's mentored all three of us in a sense in grad recruitment. She knows herself. and it's been great to have that kind of person, because we're able to play in that space of checking in on ourselves as recruiters. That, guys, what are we doing? Are we Are we doing the right things for transformation? Are we serving the people that we think we're serving? Or are we serving ourselves?
Yes.
So for the three of us, this was very important for us to open up this sort of space.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you so much, guys, for coming on board.
Yes, and we have actually a lot of comments in our comment section, and we have a question right now asking, how can a graduate make her CV and cover letter stand out to a recruiter? So noting that you did mention that you also got some expertise on how you could also fix your CV, maybe could you please share with us any other tips on how to stand out?
All right, so the one thing that I'm going to say is a CV, it's an end result of a lot of work that you put in through your life. So the CV is just a document that you use to, communicate who you are. So what a lot of people, it's nice to have these workshops that tell you this is how you put your CV together, this is how it needs to look. But if there is no substance within that, it becomes like we've seen CVs. When we were chatting with Shah, we're looking at like a good 5 to 2, depending on where you work, 2,000, some organizations, 10,000 CVs a year. So we see all of them. The one thing that I think is very important for people in the job market is you need to get involved in things. So it's not just about making your CV look good. It's about building yourself, building your own character, building skill sets. So Shah mentioned earlier on how she started working at 13, and she mentioned some of the things that has then built in her as an individual, and the journey that she has gone through now, and how those skills that she learned back then have helped her in navigating the rest of her journey. That's exactly what it is. So when recruiters say be well-rounded and all these things, it's not necessarily that we're trying to put you on your paces, or we're trying to help you buffer up. It's not about buffering up. It's about building your character. And I think that's what's important. I think the one painful thing for me that I've been very conscious to has always been about where people come from, because I know that with some people, they really are battling even politics of the stomach, where it's not necessarily by choice that they can't get out of just the academics and do other things. And I think we also need to recognize that, but where you can as an individual, I know that some of our journeys are not as easy, some of our journeys are a little bit painful, but where you can as an individual, try do other things. Try get involved in things that are either going to keep your mind stimulated or are going to build you and the skills that you're going to bring into the workplace. I always say to students that university or things that you participate in are basically like a training ground or a micro world of what you're going to experience once you get into corporate or wherever else you want to get to. I know some people want to become entrepreneurs, for instance, but all these things that you do in your life, they start building you to get to a certain place, or to give you tools for part of your journey. So what I would say is, before you put your CV together, start thinking about the things that you are doing and how you can communicate those within your CV, because the CV is nothing without the substance. The interview itself also is nothing without the substance. We can ask you all the questions that we want, and I have experienced it where somebody literally just stares at me because unfortunately they had nothing to say. And I can't fault that person for that. They had nothing to say. And it's quite unfortunate, because you almost want to be like, can I help you? But I can't, because it's by the time you get to the interview, it's a little bit late. There's things that you can't build. But where you can, especially people who are waiting right now for a job opportunity or whatever, volunteer. Go to the creche down the road, volunteer at your church, take up a structure in your church if you go to church, or, whatever your religion is. Do something. Don't just sit at home or hang out with your friends. Go get involved in something that can build you, so that when people ask you a question, you are able to then respond with some confidence and nerve. But do something. Be on the move, so that when things come, you are moving with them, and you're not just stuck now going, oh goodness, I didn't realize they needed that. And I guess this is the reason why this platform exists, so that the things that people don't know, we want to be able to almost help you close those gaps if you don't know any better.
Yes.
Just to add on to what Phindi has already said. So, Shamiz, I think also be mindful that there are jobs that actually talk about a cover letter. So if they specifically talk about a cover letter, yes, then you definitely need to include a cover letter. I am not that recruiter who can go through 6,000 CVs and read all cover letters, unfortunately. And I'm so happy that, yes, our mentor here, and I'm going to mention her name, Kathy. Kathy mentored myself, Ronnie, and we're so glad to have you in this conversation, Kathy, because I think you have done amazing things with graduates in the country. And I think it's really, really amazing what SAGEA does and stands for. So my thing around the cover letter is really where the role talks about you including a cover letter, blow your own horn, because that is the first part where we're going to get to know who you are as an individual. Without a cover letter, where the job doesn't specify that you do need a cover letter, include as much information as possible. And I say this all the time, be as authentic as possible. Talk about your leadership roles, whether it's in high school, especially as a graduate, right? Because you don't have too much to fall back on. Talk about your achievements, talk about your passions, so that we can see as graduate recruiters if this is someone we want to invite in for an interview, and if you would fit into the organizational culture, because I think culture plays a huge aspect when we make hiring decisions. And you know, whether you're going to fit into a team, the culture in that specific team is quite important. So I think it's important for you to, you know, blow your own horn in your CV. I say this all the time, guys, because it's the first time we're going to meet with you, and talk as much as possible about who you are, what you've done, your passions, and how you think you can add value and make an impact to the organization that you are applying for.
And just on that, Shah, while I have you here, there is a question asking how important is an applicant's LinkedIn profile to recruiters? So as you mentioned, blowing your own horn. So do you think it should also be streamlined to LinkedIn? Should you also
Definitely. Definitely. So us as recruiters, think of us as the hawks, right? We search, we make sure that we look at LinkedIn, we look at Facebook, we try and find our candidates wherever we can. And yes, it's very important. Just after your profile, LinkedIn is probably your next best, your next best profile. So make sure it stands out. We're going to share as we go through the series. So this series is not really just going to be myself, Ronnie, and Phindi talking every single week. We're going to bring in experts going forward in the season to talk to you about different topics and different themes. So please make sure that you do just tune into the conversations. Today, we thought we'd actually just have a chilled conversation and introduce ourselves and the intention of the program. But LinkedIn is extremely important. And as we go through the series, we'll be sharing nuggets of what is important, what should stand out on your profile. Guys, LinkedIn is not a social site. It's a professional networking site, firstly. I have seen really scary pictures on LinkedIn of people, inappropriate photos. This is where you get access to CEOs of organizations, people who are probably going to hire you or not hire you. So all we want to see on LinkedIn is your passions, your profession. Everything else stays on Facebook and Instagram. And if you can, try and make those private as well, because we are kind of like the hawks. We read up on our candidates to make sure that we're making the best decision.
Yeah, can I just add to that, Beryl? So yes. I think on the LinkedIn, point, the profile picture is so important, and to just echo Shalin's comment around the appropriateness of a picture. I've also seen some very horrible pictures, but also some profiles not even having a picture at all. So the first thing I do immediately to a profile like that will send me a request is to reject it, because you don't know who you are accepting, if it's a phishing account or whatever the case is. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is professional and that you've got a really good picture that gives us an idea a window into your world. But I also wanted to just say as well, in terms of CVs, please don't lie on your CV. Don't say things that are not true, that you've not done before, because in the interview, we are going to ask you to demonstrate your competency in those areas. And if you can't, or if you waffle and you make up stories, it's just going to appear very, very bad and unprofessional. So don't lie. Make sure that your CV is relevant to the role that you're applying for. I know that probably that applies a lot more to experienced hires, but even for graduates, I think in your CV, demonstrate that you've got an understanding of the organization that you're applying to, the sector that you're applying to, and the role that you're applying to. I think most grad programs will tell you which fields they are recruiting for. So if it's financial services or banking, if it's quants, or if it's finance, if it's corporate, banking, whatever the case is, just demonstrate that you have got competencies and skills in that field that you're applying to. But also, don't overload your CV with information that's not really relevant. I think all of us, at some point where we had a church role somewhere, or a youth club role somewhere. If it's no longer relevant, don't include it. It's just going to clutter your CV. So make sure that the recruiter will quickly get to see what is relevant for the job that they've put out as an advert, and where your skill set matches with that job, and whether or not they want to interview you or see you. So if you put in information that is not really relevant, it's just one of those that are going to end up at the bottom of the pile. So please, I think that those are my comments around that. I saw there was another question, Beryl, earlier on.
Yes.
About, or maybe we can talk about that one a bit later. I don't know if you've got something else you want to deal with now.
No, seeing that you touched it, could we please discuss that? There was a question to Ronnie.
From Lee.
Apart from language, what has been your biggest challenge as a village boy in corporate?
Wow, that's a very loaded question. But you know what I think is that at some point, being a village boy becomes really uneventful or not relevant anymore, because you eventually start to build a certain profile, and you start building a network and relationships, and all of those things fast track you in the world of work. I think for me, the fact that I'm from a village, and a real one, I was saying to Shalin, it's a real one with no tar roads, with no street lights, valleys and rivers, no drinking water. You have to go fetch water with a wheelbarrow, and water comes back like once or twice a week or something like that. So I think all of that gives you context. It gives you identity, and I'm very proud of that heritage, that I'm from Tsianda village, where I was raised. But I think and I remember what one of my directors in my first job said to me when he was giving me feedback. It was 3 of us grads in that program, and he said, "You know what, Ronnie, there is something special about you and the values that we've seen you demonstrate at work." And I think those values really were just respect, and the fact that no task that I was ever allocated, as much as I was a vets graduate and whatever, no task was ever too menial or too small, or for me to do, and I would do it to the best of my ability, and I'll put my heart and my effort. I think for the first 6 months in my first job, the only things I was doing, I even got paper cuts. I don't know if you've worked with so much paper that your hands eventually actually get cut by paper. So that's what I was doing. I was putting together packs for the senior managers who were doing presentations to different clients. That was my job. With my degree in tech, I was by the printer printing the pack, making sure that the labeling is correct. I mean, I did that job so well that I became that guy. I became the meeting pack guy. Any manager who wanted There are meetings to be handled,
They
you know,
said, Ronnie,
professionally, well, thoroughly, you know. And guess what? You know, that village value of hard work and never
yes,
underestimating any task, né? That's what actually catapulted me and made me grow quite quickly in my career. Because before I knew it, all the managers were just like, you know what, can you ask Ronnie to do this for us? And I was working for, I think, like 6 lines of service within my department. Stuff I didn't even know about sometimes. And sometimes I would read these things, I'll be like, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. You know, can I help you actually draft that document? I saw that you need to draft this document for a client. And that's how then, you know, things started to unfold and I started to get involved more, you know, in the work. So I think for me, being a village boy actually was not a disadvantage as much as I didn't have as much exposure to things.
yes.
I learned, I was keen to learn, I was hungry to learn, and I would do really just about any task and I would do it very well. So I think that's how
Yeah.
I can respond. I hope I've answered your question, Luetu.
I think you have, because I think there's also an importance of breaking stereotypes. So not just of where you grew up or how you present yourself, but in the matter of other people being willing to listen to you and willing to see the hard work that you portray. Because looking at you, Ronnie, if you had not said that, no, I grew up in a village, no one else would have asked the question regarding a village. They would have just thought of that as a sideline. But it goes to show how there are stereotypes out there. And the minute you start engaging with it, it just goes to show how we need to break the bias and break all these stereotypes that are within corporate. Because simply because you were the paper guy does not mean that you weren't destined for more. So it just goes to show how people need to just be engaged and just do something. And when they do something, they should do it really well so that the rest of the corporate space could actually see that, listen, there is talent here. So thank you so much for sharing that. I did see that there was a question that popped up. I'm not sure. Yes. Hi, recruiters. How do graduates or applicants address past failures, whether it be a failed model, exclusion, dropping out, being let go at a position, or even gaps in the CV? How do they turn this around into a positive? I think I'll leave this open. Phindile, you could also start this conversation, please.
All right. So I had an uncle. Unfortunately, he passed away about end of Jan, and he was an HR executive. So for me, it was always tough going, okay, so how did I tell them that I left because of hard situations at my job? But he kind of like gave me some strategies. I decided I'm going to go for the truth, and it served me. But I think in some senses, I do have the gift of the gab under pressure. So that works for me. But what I would say is, as Ronnie's mentioned, don't lie. Be authentic. If the reasons are genuine and it's not anything that it's that you can help, just be honest about it. Look, why do I have gaps in my CV? I might have made a decision that might have been incorrect. I decided to take a break and now I'm here. The reason why I'm sitting here is because I have seen my past mistakes. I have worked through them. These are the things that I've done to work through them. And this is why I've landed here. Just don't lie about it. Don't try maneuver and do all these things. As I mentioned, we literally see 5 to 2, 3, 4, 5,000 plus CVs a year. So imagine the number of interviews that we also do on a yearly basis and the number of people that we meet on a yearly basis. So there's things that we already know how to pick up. So be authentic, be yourself, settle in yourself, really speak to the recruiters like they're other human beings. And I think the one thing that Shalin mentioned during one of our chats was that recruiters are not always going to be the same. So you might find somebody who goes, okay, great, that's great for me. And sometimes you might find recruiters who already write you off before listening to you. And the one thing you must remember that it's not through any fault of your own. It's
Yes.
the people on the other side. Unfortunately, there is a thing where those people have got a massive bearing around people getting in. But what I would say is that where you do have control is how you decide to communicate your narrative. And I think be very authentic in how you communicate your narrative. but show that there is something you're doing. If there's a gap in your CV and you've just been sitting doing nothing, then that's very difficult to speak to. As I mentioned earlier on, same thing with your CV. The substance is what matters. It's not about what things look like. So be able to substantiate where you can. I dropped out of this course because it actually was challenging for me. I was going through personal things. We all go through personal things. We are human beings at the end of the day. If there's an organization that does not see you as a human being, you know, I don't know whether that is the place for you to be, if they're not going to allow you to be a human being. I know that it sounds very privileged and it's a luxury for some of us to say these things, but to be honest, this is me speaking personally. I don't like seeing people die in places where they work, to be honest. And Kathy's just mentioned, I would much prefer hiring someone who has learned from their mistakes. Exactly. That, because it shows that resilience. It shows the resilience. It shows that this person at least has learned. Because learning agility is one of the most important things that we look at. It's one of the traits that we look at. That learning agility, adaptability. You know, are you able to bounce back from past mistakes? Are you able to turn situations around? You know, or do you just sit and go, well, I failed at this thing, I'm going to go do something else? Because when you get into the workplace, you are going to face challenges. It is not going to be easy 100% of the time. You are going to experience people that are difficult to work with. But when you run away from those things and you don't deal with them yourself, then it's going to become difficult. Hence, going back to the mentor and the coach, get people that are able to assist you so that you can be able to understand how to go about doing certain things. Even if it's just finding a recruiter on LinkedIn, for instance. There are some recruiters who respond. There are people who are professionals who respond, and some people don't, but take a chance. I know Ronnie didn't like the whole shooting shot. Yes, for an application, you don't say I'm shooting my shot. But if you're trying to get to somebody on LinkedIn, you can just say, hi, listen, I'm just shooting my shot here, but because you're somebody whose profile I really like and I see you've got experience, I wanted to ask you questions. I've done that. I've reached out to an HR director at one of the FMCGs, and she came back to me straight away. And we had a chat, and she gave me all these ideas. It was 1 hour of her time, but that 1 hour was so valuable. So yes, I see you. So I just want to say, be honest about it, but also just kind of think about how you want to create the narrative and speak to the things that you've gone through. But I hope that, Ursula, I hope that that answers the question that you have. Zani is also here. Zani also said, it's not about the mistakes, it's about what happens after. Exactly. Thanks, Zani.
All right. And thank you so much to everyone that's in the comments. Shah, we're getting one saying, that's my cousin Shalin. We're getting comments. This is so awesome. Well done, guys. And another person, Lebogang, saying, I will definitely be joining in next week and spread the word to my unemployed graduated nieces and nephews to join in. Very important information. Another one coming in, I reached out to Shalin and she responded. Hence why I'm here today. So thankful for being able to join. Thank you so much to everyone with all the comments. I can't believe, I don't know where time has went.
Beryl, sorry, just to reach out to the person who said I'll be joining in next week. The sessions are going to be happening once a month, on the last Saturday of every month. So it's not a weekly session. I wish we had that much of time to give, but we're only going to be doing these sessions once a month on the last Saturday of every month.
Yes. Thank you so much for clarifying that. And also, as everyone can see, we'd like to know what you thought about the first session. So please send through your feedback. It is anonymous. You could just tap into the link. I think it will also be shared via Facebook so that we could retrieve all the comments and thoughts on how we could better the platform and just maybe even extend it, since this hour goes by so fast. But this is up to the host. So thank you so much. Are there any closing comments? We are 1 minute after the hour. So could we please, Ronnie, are there any final thoughts? Shah?
Thank you, Beryl. Thank you very much indeed. And thanks, visionaries, Shalin and Phindile, for this opportunity to be part of this initiative. So I'm very grateful. I think for me, the closing or the parting shot for me is that, the employment space is quite difficult for everyone at the moment, and we get it, we understand it. And, I was saying to some of my colleagues, as lockdown was being lifted, that sometimes we take being employed for granted, and it's not obvious that your organization hasn't retrenched through the lockdown, and sometimes we want to find fault where there isn't fault. I think being in a job at the moment is really a great privilege, and I think all of us should hold that dear to us. However, all of us need to be aware of our own development, aspirations in the corporate world. I think as young graduates as well, I think it's important for us to understand that your employer and your HR person or your recruiter is not going to do everything for you. You also have to show and demonstrate that you've got a plan for yourself, that you've got an ambition, that you are hungry to learn, and then they will help you navigate that space. I think one of my observations, being a grad recruiter and a grad manager, was that a lot of the graduates would come and want you as a grad talent manager to do everything for them, and sometimes you're like, no, you need to tell me what your aspirations are, and I will see how I help you align that with the organization and the opportunities and mentors and resources that we've got available. But you've got to sit down and think about what your plan is and how you want to get to your destination in terms of your own career. And so I think that's really what we're going to be trying to cover in these sessions. I think next session we probably should focus a lot more on what happens when I arrive in the workplace. What kind of skills, what kind of competencies do I need to work on in order for me to be a great resource to my employer, and also for me to develop my career further. So I think for me, that would be my parting shot. And thank you indeed, everybody, for joining us today. Would love to hear your comments and your feedback. Any questions, any topics you'd like for us to cover, if there are any conversations you'd like for us to have, or people you've been dying to have a conversation with. I'm sure between the three of us and Kathy and Zani and other people, we can probably find, those people that you've been dying to have a conversation with and to hear from. I think that's what we'd like to facilitate on this platform. And so thank you indeed, everybody. I really appreciate everybody who had logged in to listen. Kathy, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks, team. I think I talk a lot. Those who know me know that I talk a lot, so I'm not even going to go. I know we're past time, but really from the depths of my heart, I'm so thankful that you've joined this initiative with us. Please hold our hands. There are lots of lessons that we're still going to learn as we go through this journey. There are lots of lessons we've learned for part one, and we're thankful to Phindi for being our technical instructor. Ronnie, thank you so much for your time. Ronnie's doing his PhD, guys, so well done for making the time and giving back. Beryl, thank you specifically for joining us and making sure that we have a graduate who launches the session with us. I think it was very important for us to make sure that we do include graduates as well as experienced hires in these conversations. So please do reach out to us. I think we're going to do amazing things together. Thank you.
All right, from my side, I'm literally holding back the tears at this point. I'm literally holding back the tears. Yeah, man, it's been such a learning curve. And I think just even us getting onto Facebook, the three people with me know what we've gone through. It has been such a learning curve, but such a rewarding experience for us. And just to go back to the thank yous, honestly, Kathy, Zani, everybody who's been supporting us over the last couple of weeks as we've been working through this, we really appreciate all the help. the guidance, just even the hyping and the guys keep going, well done, you know, getting the messages last night. We really appreciate that. And to the person who did our graphics, as Shalin's mentioned, we've roped in people who are graduates that have been through the journey that are still very fresh. And this is going to be a collaborative journey. It's not just about us as the people that are here. It's about everybody coming together. It's a community thing. So where you've got people that you know, your sisters, your brothers, cousins, you name it, share the word, because we are here to ensure that people are able to access this. So to Silo, Vincent, Mike, we thank you so much for helping us out and for also helping us with the social media. But we're looking forward to the next session. There's a lot to come. We're going to be covering things such as financial wellness, you name it. We're here about building the person. We're here about building the person, not the aesthetics. The aesthetics will get you, but we want to build the person. Hence we said career and personal development, because we believe that personal development is very critical to how you build your career. So please tune in every second last Saturday of the month. We will be here chattering, teta. So please let people know about Mgqibelo Thetha. Let them join in. We thank our friends, we thank our families as well for being with us through this. And Beryl, thank you so much, our hostess with the mostest. We really appreciate everything that you have been through this time.
Thank you to our hosts and the creators of this initiative. I'm really grateful to have formed part of it. And to everyone that has joined, please don't forget to send through your feedback so that we could know what you would like us to discuss. As you've heard, that the creators have a jam-packed plan for these sessions. So please do comment and just let your family know, shoot your shot and let your family know that they can also shoot their shot via social, and let them also know that they should also put factual information in their CVs, because Ronnie is not going to take any shoot your shots in CVs. So thank you so much to everyone, and thank you for joining. I think that's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Thank you. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.